Let's look at how we can use nested loops to fill a two-dimension array with information. We're going to have a person who's determined to eat Cocoa Puffs for every meal for 4 days. That's going to be breakfast, lunch, and supper. So for 4 days, 3 meals each day, this person's going to eat Cocoa Puffs, and we're going to keep track of the number of Cocoa Puffs eaten at each meal. That's what's going to be in our array. And again, 3 meals a day. Breakfast, lunch, and supper, or as we'll see, meal 0, meal 1, and meal 2. So we'll declare a two-dimensional array. There you see the 2 sets of brackets. And I'll call it Cocoa Puffs Eaten as a new int with 4 rows and 3 columns. That's the 4 inside the first bracket and the 3 inside the other bracket. Here's the information we'll be using. 3 meals a day, 0, 1, and 2 for 4 days. And notice there are 3 meals on day 0, 3 meals on day 1, 3 meals on day 2, and 3 meals on day 3. We'll have a variable that keeps track of the current amount of Cocoa Puffs. I'll call it current Cocoa Puffs, and that's going to stand for the number of Cocoa Puffs eaten at the current meal, because we're going to ask for information about every single one of those meals. We'll prompt the user to let them know we're gathering some Cocoa Puffs information, and we're going to have them enter in data for all the meals. And we'll use nested loops. This documentation says we're going to add them all up. We're actually going to do that a little later. The purpose of this is to get all the information into the array. Sorry about that. So let's start with a for loop for int row equals 0. And we'll go as long as the row is less than Cocoa Puffs eaten, which is our array, dot length. Remember, that's the number of rows. And row plus plus. Every row is a day. So this outer loop with the rows is for each of the days. There they are, day 0, day 1, day 2, and day 3. 3 meals on each day. Inside that, we'll have another for loop to go through the columns. So int col equals 0. We'll have col as long as it is less than Cocoa Puffs eaten, and we'll go with row 0. All the rows have the same length, so we'll just pick one, row 0 dot length, and bump col up by 1 every time. We'll let the users know that we're anticipating that they're going to be putting in Cocoa Puffs data for each meal. So we'll tell them to please enter the Cocoa Puffs for, and we'll say the day, which is actually the current row. So day, but then we'll use the variable row. And then the current meal is the column. So we'll say meal, and then plus col. And then current Cocoa Puffs will equal whatever they enter in with keyboard.nextInt. And again, that's the number of Cocoa Puffs for this meal. And a reminder that this inside for loop is for all the meals in a given day, which are the columns. And current Cocoa Puffs should hold the amount of Cocoa Puffs we need, so we'll have Cocoa Puffs eaten, row in the first bracket, and col for column in the second bracket. And now that spot in the array will be filled in with the current amount of Cocoa Puffs, which we're calling current Cocoa Puffs. Let's test this out and make sure we're actually getting to every spot in the array. So there's day 0, meal 0, day 0, meal 1, day 0, meal 2, and now we go to day 1. So far things are looking okay. I'm just typing in the data that you saw in the image up to day 3. Looks like we're in good shape. Just need to put a space there to make it a little easier to read. Actually should have put the space after the colon. Now let's add up all the elements inside the array. We'll find the total number of Cocoa Puffs eaten overall for all the days and all the meals. I'll have an integer running total variable. I'll call it total Cocoa Puffs, and I'll initialize it at 0, and it will keep track of all the Cocoa Puffs eaten. Once again, we'll need to use nested loops. We'll start with the rows. So int row equals 0. As long as the row is less than Cocoa Puffs eaten dot length, Cocoa Puffs eaten is the array. And we'll have row go up by 1 with row plus plus. Once again, that's for all the rows, 1 day at a time, because each row is 1 day, starting with day 0. And now, each column. So for int col equals 0, col is less than Cocoa Puffs eaten, and I'll use row in brackets. All of our rows in this array have the same length. It is possible for rows to have different lengths. That's called jagged arrays. So we're kind of getting prepared for that by using row here. So just in case a row had a different length, we'll still get every element inside of it. And once again, this inside for loop is for all the columns, which is all the meals for 1 day. So now we'll have our running total variable, total Cocoa Puffs, plus equals where we are in the array, which will be Cocoa Puffs eaten, the name of our array, row, in brackets, and column, col, in brackets. That will cover every spot in the array. Once the loop is over, that variable, total Cocoa Puffs, should hold all the Cocoa Puffs that were eaten. So we will display it. Time to test this out again. I'll use that same data. I'll save you watching me type all of it in, but I'll use the same numbers I used before. And there's our total of all the Cocoa Puffs, 578 of them. You can check by adding the numbers up on this chart. That's how many Cocoa Puffs were eaten in the span of 4 days, with 3 meals on each day. What if you want to just add up all the elements or sum all the elements in one row? For us, that would be all the Cocoa Puffs in just 1 day. Well, again, we'll use nested loops. We'll start the outer loop with the rows, starting with row 0. We'll keep things going as long as we're less than Cocoa Puffs eaten dot length, and increment row with row plus plus. That's going to take care of all the rows, 1 row or 1 day at a time. I'll declare this variable here, and it will reset itself every time this for loop runs. That's okay. Int daily Cocoa Puffs equals 0. That's a running total for each day, and it's going to reset itself each day as well. Now inside this loop, another loop to go through all the columns for each day. Int col equals 0, as long as col is less than Cocoa Puffs eaten for the current row dot length. Then we'll go ahead and bump col up by 1, col plus plus. Again, that's for all the columns or meals for 1 day. So now we'll have the daily Cocoa Puffs plus equal the current amount of Cocoa Puffs we're on in our array as we traverse or go through the array with this nested for loop. So Cocoa Puffs eaten, and I'll use row, which is one of the counters, and COL, which is another of the counters. So in this inner loop, row will not change its value, but COL will. So daily Cocoa Puffs can get the value from each meal on one day and add them all up. So as this day ends, because we're through the inside for loop, we'll display the day's Cocoa Puffs information and tell the users how many Cocoa Puffs were eaten on this day. Again, we need to do this now because the next thing that's going to happen is this outer for loop will hit the bottom and head back up to the top. Daily Cocoa Puffs will get reset back to 0, ready for a new day. But we still have the current day's information inside daily Cocoa Puffs. That's the data we're using. You won't have to watch me type all of them in, and you can type in whatever you want. But there's the breakdown for each day, which is every row on that chart, because every row is one day with 3 meals. But what if you want to know how many Cocoa Puffs were eaten for each meal? For example, how many Cocoa Puffs were eaten for breakfast on day 0, 1, 2, and 3? How many Cocoa Puffs were eaten for lunch? So this time we're going to add all the elements in each column, which is, again, the meals. How many Cocoa Puffs at a meal for all the days? All the breakfasts added together, all the lunches added together, all the suppers added together. So we already went across for a given day, but now you see we're going down in a column. Those are all for the same meal time during the day, for meals 0, 1, and 2. Well, now our outer loop is going to be a loop for the columns. So I'll have int COL equals 0. And as long as COL is less than, well, I'll choose a row, probably row 0. All the rows are the same, dot length. And then increment COL with COL++. Again, this outside loop will cover all the columns, which is the meal part of the array. I'll have a running total variable this time called int meal Cocoa Puffs, and it represents for each meal how many Cocoa Puffs were eaten. Now the inner loop deals with rows, so int row equals 0, and as long as row is less than the length of the array of Cocoa Puffs eaten, we're okay, and row++. That will cover all the days for each meal. So meal Cocoa Puffs plus equals Cocoa Puffs eaten for each row and column. The row and column are going to be the index values, and they're also the counter values for our loop. Before we go back to the top of the outer loop and reset meal Cocoa Puffs back to 0, we want to display that value because that is the amount of Cocoa Puffs for a given meal. And that's what we're going to show the users right here. And we'll run this again to check it out in just a moment. Once again, we're adding up the values in these columns for meal 0, meal 1, and meal 2, which are supposed to represent breakfast, lunch, and supper. Again, I'll save you watching me type all the same values in again. And there you go, we can see how many Cocoa Puffs were eaten for each meal. 231 for meal 0, 190 for meal 1, and 157 for meal 2. So we've looked at ways to add all the parts of the array but also we can add up individual rows and individual columns.